Did you know that you could legally be punished as a witch just for wearing high heels on a first date? Or that it is explicitly forbidden to push a live moose out of a moving airplane? We are diving deep into the absolute dumbest and most insane ancient rules that actually existed in history. From banning Christmas to arresting people for making ugly faces at dogs, we've uncovered 111 of the most insane, real rules from American history that make absolutely zero sense. Smash that subscribe button right now, because we are about to prove that history was totally ridiculous. 1. Let us go back to the wild days of Alaska, where apparently people had way too much free time on their hands. Believe it or not, there is an actual rule that states it is illegal to push a live moose out of a moving airplane. You have to ask yourself what kind of chaotic event happened in history to make this necessary. Did someone actually try to skydive with a 1,200-pound beast? The lawmakers looked at this madness and decided they needed to put it in writing immediately. It is truly the definition of a specific problem requiring a specific solution. This law proves that human boredom is dangerous. 2. Travel back to the 1700s in New Jersey, where romance was apparently a very dangerous game for ladies. The law stated that if a man was tricked into marriage by a woman using cosmetics or high heels, the marriage was void. But it gets worse because that woman would then be punished for witchcraft. Imagine putting on some lipstick for a date and ending up on trial for being a sorceress. And the men back then were so insecure they made it a crime to look too pretty. It sounds like a bad joke, but this was real-life history. You simply could not contour your way into a husband. 3. Imagine cruising down the sunny highways of California feeling the wind in your hair, but then suddenly, police sirens start blaring behind you. The officer walks up to your window and issues a ticket, not for speeding, but because you are wearing a cozy housecoat behind the wheel. Apparently, the lawmakers of California decided that driving while comfortable was a threat to public safety and banned women from wearing housecoats while driving. It sounds absolutely absurd, but at some point in history, this was a genuine concern for the state. You have to wonder if a loose robe caused a massive traffic jam back in the day. 4. If you find yourself in Gainesville, Georgia, you better put down that silverware immediately because eating fried chicken with a fork is actually illegal. The town calls itself the poultry capital of the world, and they take their finger-licking good reputation very seriously. A tourist was once arrested as a prank for trying to eat his meal with a fork instead of his bare hands. The locals believe that fried chicken is a sacred culinary art that must be touched directly by human skin. It is a hilarious rule that proves Americans will legislate literally anything to protect their favorite comfort foods. 5. Alabama looked at the world of sports and decided they needed to draw a very strict line in the sand regarding bears. The state explicitly banned bear wrestling matches even if the bear is totally willing to participate in the fight. You have to imagine some redneck actually asked a bear for consent before trying to put it in a headlock. This law implies that there was once a thriving underground scene of people grappling with grizzlies for entertainment. It is good to know the government stepped in to stop people from trying to suplex a 500-pound predator. 6. We have all heard of strict liquor laws, but Ohio took things to a completely different level of weirdness by making it a crime to get a fish drunk. Somewhere in the history of the state, a person must have poured a beer into a fishbowl and caused enough trouble to make this a law. It is hilarious to picture a police officer performing a sobriety test on a goldfish swimming a little too crookedly. The fact that they had to write this down suggests that aquatic intoxication was becoming a real problem. Please be responsible and keep your whiskey away from the aquarium. 7. The people of French Lick, Indiana were apparently so terrified of bad luck that they passed a law specifically for black cats. The rule states that all black cats must wear bells on their collars on Friday the 13th to warn people of their approach. Imagine the town council sitting around trembling in fear because they thought a silent kitty was going to curse them all. This is superstition turned into actual legislation, and it forces pet owners to dress up their cats like little jesters. It is a perfect example of how fear makes us do the most ridiculous things imaginable. 8. You might want to control your facial expressions while walking through Oklahoma, because making ugly faces at a dog can actually land you in jail. The law considers it a crime to tease or torment a canine by contorting your face in a weird way. This means you could technically be fined just for looking goofy while playing with your own puppy in the park. It feels like a law written by a dog who learned how to type and wanted respect. Next time you see a cute golden retriever, remember to keep a straight face or you might become a criminal. 9. California returns to the list with a very specific rule regarding the high-stakes world of frog jumping contests. If a frog sadly dies during the competition, it is explicitly illegal to cook and eat that frog afterwards. This implies that previously people were losing the contest and then deciding to turn their athlete into a snack out of frustration. The law protects the dignity of the deceased jumper and ensures they get a proper burial instead of ending up on a dinner plate. It is a weirdly respectful rule for a sport that involves shouting at amphibians to hop further. 10. The state of Kansas decided that they needed to act as the etiquette police for everyone enjoying a nice drink. It is completely illegal to serve wine in teacups, which seems like the most random restriction in history. Perhaps they were trying to stop people from hiding their alcohol consumption during fancy afternoon tea parties. The lawmakers clearly felt that drinking Merlot out of fine china was just too confusing for society to handle. If you run out of wine glasses in Kansas, you are just out of luck because using a teacup makes you a lawbreaker in their eyes. 11. New York City is known as the city that never sleeps, but apparently you cannot be too comfortable while staying awake. There is an old law stating that slippers are not to be worn in public after 10 at night. Imagine stepping out for a late-night bodega run in your fuzzy bunny slippers and suddenly getting slapped with a fine. The lawmakers must have thought that wearing pajamas outside was the beginning of the end for civilized society. It is such a weirdly specific fashion police moment that tries to control what you wear on your own feet. You better put on some real shoes if you want to avoid trouble. 12. If you live in Maryland and plan to catch the latest blockbuster, you better leave your pet lion at home. The state laws explicitly mention that it is a violation to bring a lion into a movie theater. This implies that at some point in history, a guy actually walked in with a jungle cat to watch a silent film. The panic that must have ensued when the lion roared during the previews is hilarious to imagine. It is the kind of rule that makes you realize people used to treat dangerous predators like common house cats. Leave Mufasa in the backyard for this one. 13. Ladies in Vermont had a rough time because they actually needed written permission from their husbands to wear false teeth. This rule treats dental hygiene like a major property decision that required male approval. Imagine needing a signed note just to be able to chew your food properly at dinner. It highlights how controlling the laws were regarding women and their bodies, even down to their dentures. The husband held all the power and could technically force his wife to stay toothless if he was feeling mean. It is a shocking reminder of how ridiculous the patriarchy could be in early American history. 14. Driving through Denver, Colorado on a Sunday used to be a criminal act if your car happened to be painted black. The law stated it was illegal to drive a black car on the Sabbath, likely due to some old religious reasoning about somber colors. Imagine buying a brand new Model T which only came in black and realizing you are stuck at home every single Sunday. The police were essentially ticket agents for color coordination on the highways. It is wildly inconvenient and makes absolutely zero sense in the modern world. You would have to walk to church just because your paint job was illegal. 15. Alabama wanted to make sure everyone understood the basic concept of sight while operating a motor vehicle. It is explicitly illegal to drive a car while blindfolded, which seems like the most obvious rule ever written. You have to wonder who actually tried to navigate traffic with a piece of cloth tied around their eyes. Was it a dare or a magic trick gone wrong that forced the state to intervene? This law exists because someone was stupid enough to think they could drive using only the force. Please keep your eyes open on the road and do not test this one. 16. North Dakota decided that certain snack combinations were just too dangerous for the general public to handle together. It is technically illegal to serve beer and pretzels at the exact same time in a bar or restaurant. This law suggests that the combination of salty snacks and cold brew was causing some kind of chaos. Maybe the pretzels were making people drink too fast and get rowdy in the saloons. It is a bizarre culinary restriction that tries to break up one of the most iconic food duos in history. You have to eat your pretzels first and then wait for your beer separately. 17. Everyone loves a surprise gift, but in Louisiana you have to be very careful with your generosity. It is actually against the law to order a pizza to be delivered to a friend without them knowing about it first. The surprise pizza ban was created to stop people from prank calling pizzerias and sticking others with the bill. Imagine trying to do something nice for your buddy and ending up on the wrong side of the law. The government takes fast food delivery contracts very seriously down in the bayou. You must get consent before you send that pepperoni pie to someone else's house. 18. If you are broke in Washington state, do not even think about lying about your family fortune to get some cash. It is strictly illegal to pretend that your parents are rich in order to secure a loan from a bank. This specific law targets the fake heirs and heiresses who tried to scam lenders by claiming they had a massive inheritance coming. It is a funny look at how people used to con the system by simply acting like snobs. You cannot just walk in wearing a monocle and claim your dad invented the railroad. You actually need proof of funds to get paid. 19. Iowa has a very specific and somewhat insulting rule regarding musicians with physical disabilities performing for the public. The law states that one-armed piano players must perform for free and cannot charge for their concerts. It seems the lawmakers thought that if you are missing a limb, you are not working hard enough to get paid. This is terribly unfair because playing piano with one hand is actually extremely impressive and difficult. The state essentially devalued their talent solely based on how many hands they had on the keys. It is a cruel slice of history that discriminates against talented, handicapped performers. 20. Photographers in Wyoming need to check their calendars very carefully before snapping a picture of the local wildlife. It is illegal to take a picture of a rabbit from January to April without an official permit. The state takes its bunny privacy very seriously during those winter months and demands paperwork for a photo. Maybe the rabbits are shedding their winter coats and feel self-conscious about their appearance during that time. It is hilarious to think a park ranger could confiscate your camera just because you captured a cute bunny image. You better have your rabbit paparazzi license ready if you want that shot. 21. The peaceful trolley cars of Rhode Island were once under attack by a very specific condiment villain which forced the government to act. The state actually passed a law making it explicitly illegal to throw pickle juice onto a moving trolley car. You have to wonder what drove a person to carry a jar of brine just to splash it on public transit. Was it the smell that offended the passengers, or did the acid ruin the paint job? This rule implies a series of drive-by picklings that terrorized the commuters of Rhode Island for years. Next time you finish a jar of dills, just drink the juice. 22. Hawaii is known for its beautiful beaches and relaxed vibes, but they are strictly against using your body as a piggy bank. It is officially illegal to place coins inside your own ears while hanging out on the islands. This law likely targets failed magicians who kept getting quarters stuck in their ear canals and needed medical attention. The lawmakers probably got tired of paying for emergency room visits caused by people trying to hide their spare change. It is a bizarre restriction that makes you question the intelligence of the average tourist. Keep your money in your wallet and leave your ears open for the ocean breeze. 23. If you love garlic bread, you are going to have a really hard time socializing in the state of Indiana. It is actually illegal to attend any public event or go to the movies within 4 hours of eating garlic. The local government decided that bad breath was a crime against humanity and banned stinky eaters from mingling with the public. Imagine being dragged out of a theater in handcuffs just because you enjoyed some pasta with extra seasoning before the show. It is the ultimate breath check enforced by the police to keep the air smelling fresh. You better carry some strong mints or just stay home. 24. Maine wants to remind everyone that gravity is real and that staying inside the aircraft is generally a good idea. The law states that you may not step out of a plane while it is in flight, even if you have a parachute. This seems like common sense, but the fact that it is a law suggests someone tried to exit early. Maybe they just really wanted to visit a specific spot in the woods and decided to jump for it. It is hilarious that they had to criminalize the act of falling out of the sky. Please keep your seatbelt fastened until the pilot lands the plane. 25. The fashion police in Delaware were actually real police officers who were obsessed with the fit of your trousers. It is illegal to wear pants that fit too tightly around the waist, because apparently skinny jeans were a threat to society. The lawmakers claimed it was for public decency, but maybe they just hated seeing people struggle to button their pants after lunch. Imagine walking down the street and getting a citation because your waistline looked a little too squeezed. It is a funny attempt to regulate comfort and style through legislation. You better buy a size up if you want to stay out of trouble in this state. 26. South Carolina decided to protect the hearts of women everywhere by banning the cruelest prank in the romance book. It is a misdemeanor crime for a man to propose marriage to a woman as a joke. This means if you get down on one knee with a ring pop and then say, "Just kidding, you are going to jail." The lawmakers clearly saw too many broken hearts and decided to criminalize false hope in relationships. It is actually a surprisingly wholesome law that forces men to take commitment seriously. Do not play with emotions unless you are ready to pay the fine for being a total jerk. 27. New Mexico wants to keep its cultural institutions classy and free from gross bodily fluids. It is specifically illegal to spit on the steps of the opera house no matter how much you need to clear your throat. This implies that there was a clash between the fancy opera-goers and the rough cowboys who chewed tobacco outside. The contrast between high culture and spitting on the ground forced the state to intervene with a law. If you are going to enjoy some soprano singing, you need to leave your bad habits at home. Keep your saliva inside your mouth or find a trash can immediately. 28. Wisconsin is the dairy capital of America, and they will defend their butter with the full force of the law. It is forbidden for restaurants to substitute margarine for real butter unless the customer specifically requests the fake stuff. This was a war against vegetable oil spreads that threatened the livelihood of the local dairy farmers. If a chef tried to sneak some oleo onto your toast, he was technically committing a food crime. The state takes its cholesterol very seriously and demands that you eat the real deal. You simply cannot trick a cheesehead when it comes to the quality of their dairy products. 29. Minnesota takes pride in its clean roads and has zero tolerance for messy drivers coming from the farm. It is illegal to drive a truck with dirty tires that leave mud clods on the paved road. This law targets the farmers who would drive their tractors through the fields and then track dirt all over the highway. The state decided that cleaning up after sloppy drivers was too expensive, so they just banned the mud entirely. You essentially have to wash your tires before you are allowed to join civilization. It is a very strict rule for a state that is covered in snow half the year. 30. Idaho has some beautiful rivers for fishing, but they have one very specific rule about how you catch your trout. You are explicitly forbidden from fishing while sitting on the back of a camel. You have to ask yourself how many people in Idaho actually own camels and why they were riding them into the river. It paints a hilarious picture of a cowboy trading his horse for a desert beast and trying to cast a line. The lawmakers must have seen one guy doing this and decided it was just too weird to allow. Leave your dromedary at the stable and just stand on the bank. 31. New Jersey has a very specific rule for criminals who like to plan ahead a little too much. It is explicitly illegal to wear a bulletproof vest while you are in the middle of committing a murder. The law basically says, if you are going to be a bad guy, you are not allowed to protect yourself from the police. It adds an extra charge to your rap sheet, just for trying to be safe while doing something incredibly dangerous and illegal. The irony of prioritizing safety gear while taking a life is what makes this law so ridiculous. You have to commit your crimes unprotected just like everyone else. 32. The people of Massachusetts value a good night of sleep so much that they regulated snoring by law. Snoring is technically prohibited unless all bedroom windows are securely closed and locked to keep the noise inside. This means your neighbors could legally call the cops on you if your snoring escapes your house and disturbs their peace. Imagine the police knocking on your door at 3 in the morning just to tell you to roll over or shut the window. It is a hilarious invasion of privacy that tries to mute the loudest sleepers in the neighborhood. You better invest in some nasal strips or soundproof glass. 33. Nevada is famous for gambling and pawn shops, but there is one personal item you simply cannot trade for cash. It is strictly illegal to pawn your dentures no matter how desperate you are for a quick loan. This law implies that people were actually walking into shops and taking their teeth out to get money for the slot machines. The pawnbrokers probably got tired of handling slobbery false teeth and begged the government to stop it. It is a gross and sad rule that highlights the depths of gambling addiction. Keep your teeth in your mouth because they are worthless at the counter. 34. West Virginia wants to make sure you stay focused while swimming and do not try any musical tricks. Whistling underwater is strictly prohibited by law, which seems physically impossible for most people anyway. You have to wonder if there was an underwater choir that was annoying the local fish population. The fact that they banned a sound you cannot really make suggests the lawmakers were just bored or confused. Maybe it was to prevent people from drowning while trying to hold a tune beneath the surface. Just keep your mouth shut when you dive in and you will be fine. 35. If you are craving a late-night sandwich in Arkansas, make sure you do not get impatient in the parking lot. It is illegal to honk your car horn at a sandwich shop. After 9 o'clock at night, the law specifically protects the peace and quiet of sandwich artists trying to close up shop for the evening. Maybe the neighbors were tired of hearing hungry drivers blasting their horns for a turkey club. It is a weirdly specific noise ordinance that only applies to places selling subs and hoagies. You will just have to walk up to the window like a civilized person if you want service. 36. Utah highways are dangerous places, but not for the reasons you might think. According to state law, birds actually have the legal right-of-way on all highways. This means if a pigeon lands in front of your car doing 70 miles per hour, you are technically supposed to stop. It creates a chaotic scenario where a flock of geese could legally shut down the entire interstate system. The lawmakers clearly prioritize nature over traffic flow in a way that is totally impractical. You better hope the birds decide to fly away before you cause a massive pileup. 37. Connecticut takes its pickles incredibly seriously and has a scientific test to prove their authenticity. A pickle is not legally considered a pickle unless it physically bounces when dropped on a hard surface. This is known as the dull pickle law and was created to stop fraudsters from selling rotten cucumbers. Imagine a health inspector walking into a deli and throwing pickles on the floor to see if they jump back up. If your pickle goes splat instead of bowing, you are in violation of state law. It is a hilarious quality control measure that sounds like a playground game. 38. Florida men better check their closets because the fashion police are watching the evening wear very closely. It is illegal for men to be seen publicly in any kind of strapless gown. This law suggests that at some point guys were borrowing their wives' dresses and showing off a little too much shoulder. The state decided to draw the line at strapless evening wear for gentlemen to maintain public decency. You can wear a gown with straps if you really want to, but going strapless is a crime. It is a bizarre restriction on cross-dressing that focuses on sleeve length. 39. Love is complicated in Kentucky, but the state decided to put a strict limit on your indecisiveness. It is illegal to remarry the same person 4 times, which seems like a very specific number. This implies that couples were getting divorced and remarried in an endless cycle of toxic romance. The government essentially said 3 strikes and you are out, so stop wasting the clerk's time. If you cannot make it work after the 3rd wedding, you are legally banned from trying again. It is a relationship intervention written directly into the state statutes. 40. Montana wives need to be very careful about being nosy regarding their husband's business correspondence. It is a felony crime for a wife to open her husband's mail without his permission. This law treats a simple letter like a top-secret government document that requires security clearance. It highlights the extreme privacy rights men demanded even from their own spouses in their own homes. Imagine going to prison just because you opened the electric bill that was addressed to your hubby. It is a severe punishment for trying to help sort the Daily Post. 41. Nebraska has a very strange rule for bar owners that involves a mandatory side hustle of cooking. It is illegal to sell beer unless the establishment is simultaneously brewing a kettle of soup. This law likely dates back to a time when serving food was a requirement to serve alcohol to keep people from just drinking on an empty stomach. Imagine a bartender frantically stirring a pot of chicken noodle just so he can pour you a pint of ale. If the soup runs out, the beer tap has to close immediately. It is a delicious loophole that ensures you always get a warm meal with your cold drink. 42. Illinois wants to make sure that drivers have at least the most basic control over their vehicles. It is explicitly illegal to drive a car that does not have a steering wheel. You have to ask yourself what people were using to turn their cars before this law was passed. Were they using a wrench or just leaning really hard to the left and right? The fact that this had to be written down suggests some mechanic built a death trap and took it for a spin. Please ensure your vehicle has the round thing that makes it turn before you hit the road. 43. Oregon has a lot of respect for the dead and wants to keep their resting places peaceful. It is strictly illegal to go hunting in a cemetery, which seems like the most disrespectful hobby imaginable. The lawmakers probably had issues with hunters chasing deer through the gravestones and disturbing the mourners. It is a chaotic image of gunfire and camouflage in a place meant for quiet reflection. The law ensures that the only things being buried in the cemetery are people, not game animals. You need to take your rifle to the woods and leave the ghosts alone. 44. North Carolina takes transparency very seriously, especially when it comes to group gatherings. Organizations are legally banned from holding a meeting if the members are wearing masks. This law was originally targeted at groups like the KKK to prevent them from hiding their identities while plotting. It effectively makes costume parties and masquerade balls technically risky if you call it a meeting. The government wants to know exactly who is in the room and what they are up to. You cannot hide your face if you want to assemble a group in this state. 45. Tennessee wants to remind everyone that consciousness is a key requirement for operating a motor vehicle. It is a crime to drive a car while you are legally and physically asleep. This seems incredibly obvious, but clearly someone tried to use sleepwalking as a defense in court. The judge looked at the case and decided to make it official that napping and driving do not mix. It is a funny law because if you are asleep, you probably do not know you are committing a crime. Just pull over if your eyelids get heavy and save everyone the trouble. 46. South Dakota protects the sanctity of its cheese production with a very specific safety rule. It is illegal to lie down and fall asleep in a cheese factory. This implies that the warm and smelly environment of the factory was just too cozy for some workers. Maybe people were using the giant wheels of cheddar as pillows during their lunch breaks. The law ensures that no one is drooling on the dairy products before they get packaged. You have to stay awake and alert if you want to be part of the cheese-making process. 47. Michigan husbands used to have total control over their wives' appearance down to the very last strand. A woman is not allowed to cut her own hair without her husband's permission. This law treats a haircut like a major renovation that requires the approval of the landlord. It is a controlling and ridiculous rule that takes bodily autonomy away from women entirely. Imagine walking into a salon and needing a signed note from your spouse just to get a trim. It is a reminder of how men used to legally own every aspect of their wives' lives. 48. Virginia wants to keep phone conversations polite and civilized, even if you are angry. It is illegal to swear at another person over the telephone. This law makes road rage or prank calls technically criminal if you use bad language. The state decided that the telephone lines were a public utility that should not be polluted with profanity. You could be fined just for dropping an F-bomb during a heated argument with your friend. You have to keep your insults clean and family-friendly if you are on the line. 49. Missouri has a soft spot for the bushy-tailed rodents running around the parks. It is illegal to worry squirrels, which is a very vague and confusing law. How do you define worrying a squirrel? And how do you know if the squirrel is actually stressed out? Maybe chasing them or throwing nuts too hard counts as emotional distress for the animal. It is a hilarious rule that tries to protect the mental health of the local wildlife. You better be nice to the squirrels or the police might intervene on their behalf. 50. Texas takes property rights very seriously, even when it comes to livestock and dairy. It is illegal to milk another person's cow without their express permission. This law suggests that there were milk bandits roaming the range and stealing buckets of fresh cream. Imagine waking up early to milk your herd only to find them already empty because a thief got there first. It is a form of theft that is uniquely agricultural and totally Texan. You need to buy your own cow if you want some milk for your cereal. 51. The town of Devon in Connecticut has a rule that sounds like it came straight from a fever dream. It is officially illegal to walk backwards after sunset, which makes you wonder what kind of nighttime chaos this caused. Perhaps a local drunk stumbled backwards into a shop window, or a spy was trying to retrace his steps too literally. It turns a simple, silly walk into a criminal offense punishable by actual law enforcement intervention. If you are walking home at night, you better keep your eyes forward and your feet moving in the right direction. Do not try to moonwalk your way home, or you will get arrested. 52. New Hampshire apparently hates rhythm because they passed a law targeting music lovers in local taverns. It is technically forbidden to tap your feet or nod your head to the music while enjoying a drink. This means if a really catchy song comes on, you have to sit there frozen like a statue to avoid breaking the law. The town council must have thought that toe tapping was the gateway drug to wild, uncontrollable dancing. It is the ultimate buzzkill rule that tries to legislate the natural human reaction to a good beat. You can listen, but absolutely do not move a muscle or the police will come. 53. The men of Mississippi were apparently so gullible that the state had to step in to protect their fragile hearts. A specific law states that a man may not be seduced by a woman through lies and misrepresentation. This implies that guys were getting their hearts broken by ladies who lied about their cooking skills or bank accounts. It is hilarious that the government felt the need to criminalize bad dating behavior just to save face for the fellas. If she tells you she loves football but actually hates it, she is technically a criminal. Romance is serious business in the South and lying is against the rules. 54. Georgia has a very specific grudge against llamas and the people who choose to raise them on their farms. The law suggests that you cannot keep a llama if you want to sue for llama-related injuries. This is a bizarre victim-blaming statute that assumes if you own a llama, you know exactly what you signed up for. It implies that llamas are so inherently dangerous that owning one voids your right to legal protection. If your fluffy pet decides to kick you across the barn, the court will just shrug and say, "It is your own fault for buying it." You have been warned about the llamas. 55. Pennsylvania has a rule that makes you question the sleeping habits of its residents in the great outdoors. It is explicitly illegal to sleep on top of a refrigerator that is located outside. This paints a picture of someone dragging a heavy appliance onto their porch and using it as a hard metal bunk bed. Maybe it was a safety issue to stop people from falling off or getting locked inside during a game of hide and seek. The fact that this specific behavior had to be banned proves that backyard camping went way too far. Find a hammock and leave the fridge alone for the groceries. 56. The desert heat in Arizona is no joke, and the state laws reflect the desperate need for hydration. It is generally considered illegal to refuse a person a glass of water if they ask for it. This dates back to the Wild West days when denying a traveler a drink could literally mean sentencing them to death. It creates a friendly but mandatory hospitality rule for everyone living in the scorching sun. Even if you hate your neighbor, you legally have to quench their thirst if they come knocking. You are essentially a walking water fountain for anyone who looks parched and needs a sip. 57. Indiana wants to make sure that fishing remains a sport that requires equipment and patience, not just brute force. It is illegal to catch a fish with your bare hands, which is a practice known as noodling in the South. The lawmakers decided that grabbing a catfish by the mouth and wrestling it to shore was just too barbaric for their state. It forces you to spend money on rods and reels instead of diving into the muddy water yourself. You have to give the fish a fighting chance instead of just punching it out of the river. Put your gloves away and buy some bait. 58. The streets of New York are tough, but apparently the flirting game used to be even tougher. There is an old law that imposes a $25 fine for flirting in the street using hand signals. You have to wonder what kind of seductive gestures were stopping traffic and causing chaos in the city. Were people shooting finger guns or blowing kisses so aggressively that the police had to intervene? It is a hilarious attempt to regulate romance and keep the sidewalks moving without distraction. Keep your hands in your pockets if you see someone cute, or pay the price for being too charming. 59. Kansas has a law that sounds like it was written specifically for a circus act, gone horribly wrong. It is explicitly illegal to throw knives at men wearing striped suits. This is so strangely specific that it must have happened enough times to become a public safety issue. Maybe carnival throwers were practicing on unsuspecting businessmen who just happened to be wearing pinstripes that day. It protects the fashion choices of men who like stripes from becoming target practice for knife enthusiasts. If you see a guy in a Beetlejuice suit, please keep your cutlery to yourself and do not throw anything at him. 60. Oklahoma understands that food envy is real, and they have taken legal steps to stop it. It is actually a crime to take a bite out of another person's hamburger without their permission. This is the ultimate law for anyone who hates sharing their fries or main course with a mooching friend. The state recognizes that a burger is a sacred property that should not be violated by hungry onlookers. If your buddy tries to steal a mouthful of your lunch, you can technically call the police on him. It validates every person who ever shouted, "Get your own food," and keeps your dinner safe. 61. In the state of Maine, romance apparently involves some very specific cleaning supplies that the government had to ban. It is strictly illegal to tickle a woman under the chin with a feather duster, which sounds like the weirdest flirtation technique ever invented. You have to imagine a guy in the 1800s trying to woo a lady by dusting her face and getting rejected by the police. The lawmakers clearly decided that this behavior was not charming, but actually a criminal offense against personal boundaries. It is a hilarious rule that makes you wonder how many dusters were confiscated to keep women safe from being annoyed. 62. South Carolina takes its day of rest so seriously that being productive was actually considered a crime against the state. It is illegal to work on Sunday due to old blue laws, which meant you could go to jail just for doing your job. Imagine a shopkeeper trying to sell a loaf of bread to a hungry customer and getting handcuffed for violating the Sabbath. The government decided that everyone needed a break, whether they wanted one or not, and forced businesses to shut down completely. It is a strict enforcement of relaxation that punishes anyone who tries to hustle on the wrong day of the week. 63. Vermont is a beautiful place for equestrian lovers, but you better keep your art supplies far away from the stable. It is explicitly illegal to paint a horse, which sounds like a prank that got way out of hand. Perhaps dishonest salesmen were painting old gray horses to look young and brown again to scam unsuspecting buyers. The law steps in to protect the dignity of the animal and prevent fraudulent sales based on a fresh coat of paint. You have to appreciate the natural beauty of your pony because giving it a makeover is a crime. Put the brush down and let the horse be itself. 64. Washington State is very protective of its patriotic symbols and has drawn a hard line against artistic interpretations. It is illegal to paint polka dots on the American flag, which is a very specific design choice to criminalize. You have to wonder if there was a clown convention that tried to redesign Old Glory and offended the entire government. The law suggests that while you can fly the flag, you absolutely cannot turn it into a whimsical fashion statement. It is a funny reminder that some symbols are sacred and should not be messed with even for art. Keep the stars and stripes exactly how they are. 65. Wisconsin values the rest and recovery of its bravest heroes so much that they protected their nap time by law. It is illegal to wake a fireman when he is sleeping, which seems like a rule created to stop annoying pranksters at the station. Imagine walking past the firehouse and seeing a firefighter snoozing only to get arrested for tapping him on the shoulder. The state decided that these guys work hard enough fighting flames and deserve their beauty sleep without interruption. Unless the building is actually burning down, you need to tiptoe past them and let them dream in peace. 66. Movie lovers in Wyoming can finally rejoice because the state has officially banned the most annoying person in the theater. It is illegal to wear a hat that obstructs people's view in a theater or other place of amusement. This law targets the selfish cowboys who refuse to take off their 10-gallon hats during the picture show. It is a victory for everyone sitting in the back row who just wants to see the screen without dodging a giant brim. The government essentially legally mandated that you have to be polite and uncover your head. Take it off or get kicked out immediately. 67. Alaska returns to the list with another rule that proves common sense is not always common among tourists. You may not wake a sleeping bear to take a photograph, which is basically a law against committing suicide. The fact that this is written down means someone actually poked a hibernating grizzly just to get a cute snapshot for their album. The lawmakers probably got tired of cleaning up the mess after these photo shoots went horribly wrong. It is the ultimate example of risking your life for a picture, and the state had to make it a crime to save you from yourself. 68. Kentucky has a very colorful and confusing rule regarding the sale of baby poultry during the holidays. It is illegal to sell ducklings dyed blue unless you sell 6 of them at a time. This implies that selling one blue duck is a crime, but selling a half dozen is totally fine business practice. The law was likely created to stop people from buying single ducks as temporary Easter props and then abandoning them. By forcing you to buy a whole flock, the state ensures you are a committed duck owner. It is a weird way to regulate animal cruelty through bulk purchasing requirements. 69. California is famous for its bureaucracy, but this law takes the cake for unnecessary paperwork. It is technically illegal to set a mousetrap without a hunting license, which classifies pest control as a sport. This means that if you have a mouse in your kitchen, you officially need a permit to catch it. The idea that a homeowner needs to go to the Department of Fish and Game just to set a trap is hilarious. It turns a simple household chore into a regulated hunting expedition requiring government approval. You better hope the game warden does not check your pantry for unauthorized traps. 70. The fashion police in Massachusetts were once very concerned with the facial hair choices of their male citizens. There was a time when you could not have a goatee without paying for a license to wear it. This treats a small patch of chin hair like a privilege that the government could tax and regulate. Imagine getting pulled over by the cops and having to show your beard registration papers to avoid a fine. It is a ridiculous way to control style and extract money from men who just wanted to look cool. Shave it off or pay the fee to the state. 71. If you are traveling through Minnesota, you might want to rethink your choice of travel companions, especially if they have feathers. The law states that a person may not cross state lines with a duck sitting atop their head. You have to picture the scene that made this law necessary: a traveler casually walking across the border with a mallard balanced on his hat. It is such a specific restriction that it implies this was a popular trend or a very stubborn individual. The lawmakers clearly decided that head ducks were a distraction and banned the practice entirely. Keep your waterfowl in a cage, or at least off your scalp. 72. New Mexico has a rather harsh and outdated clause buried deep in its state constitution regarding elections. Idiots are technically banned from voting, which raises a lot of questions about who gets to decide the definition. The language uses old medical terms that are now considered offensive, but it is still shocking to see it in print. It implies that there was a test or a judgment call made at the polling station to determine your mental capacity. It is a crude attempt to filter the electorate that would never fly in the modern world. You have to wonder how many people were turned away. 73. The city of Youngstown, Ohio has zero sympathy for drivers who fail to plan their trips properly. It is explicitly illegal to run out of gas within the city limits, which adds insult to injury. Imagine your car sputtering to a stop on the highway and then a police officer handing you a ticket for being stranded. The law punishes you for the misfortune of an empty tank and treats it like a criminal act of negligence. It forces drivers to be hyper-aware of their fuel gauge or face legal consequences. You better fill up before you enter Youngstown, or you will pay the price. 74. Texas is known for its wild history, but this law proves that hotel guests used to be incredibly destructive. It is illegal to shoot a buffalo from the second story of a hotel window. This suggests that cowboys were renting rooms not to sleep, but to use as high ground for urban hunting expeditions. The hotel owners probably got tired of bullet holes in their curtains and dead bison in the streets. It is a chaotic image of the Old West where tourism and hunting overlapped in the worst way possible. You need to take your rifle outside and hunt on the ground like everyone else. 75. Utah offers plenty of outdoor activities, but they draw a hard line when it comes to multitasking with animals. It is illegal to fish from horseback, which seems like a very difficult way to catch a trout anyway. The lawmakers decided that combining rodeo skills with angling was just too dangerous or unfair to the fish. Maybe the horses were spooking the water, or the riders were falling in and causing a scene. It is a funny restriction that forces cowboys to dismount before they cast their lines. You have to choose between riding and fishing because you cannot legally do both at once. 76. Rhode Island has strict standards for public decency, and they are not afraid to enforce them on your wardrobe. It is illegal to wear transparent clothing, which seems like a direct attack on bold fashion choices. This law likely dates back to a time when scandalous fabrics were shocking the conservative residents of the state. The police were essentially tasked with judging the opacity of your shirt to see if it broke the law. It is a modesty rule that prevents you from showing too much skin, even if it is just through sheer fabric. You better wear solid layers if you want to avoid a citation. 77. Tennessee has a very practical but slightly gross approach to dealing with accidents on the highway. It is illegal to sell roadkill, but the law legally permits you to take it home and eat it yourself. This means you cannot open a roadside stand selling flattened possum, but you can cook it for your own dinner. The state wants to prevent a black market for accidental meat while still allowing people to not waste food. It is a weird compromise that turns a car accident into a potential grocery shopping trip. Just remember that you cannot profit from your bumper's hunting skills. 78. Virginia has a history of taxing luxury items, and at one point that included personal hygiene. It was once illegal to have a bathtub inside the house because it was considered a tax evasion scheme. The government viewed indoor plumbing as a fancy luxury that needed to be regulated and taxed heavily. Imagine hiding your tub in the basement so the tax collector would not find out you like to be clean. It forces people to bathe outside or pay a premium for the privilege of scrubbing up indoors. It is a reminder that the government will find a way to tax almost anything. 79. Colorado residents need to think twice before turning their front porch into an outdoor living room. It is illegal to keep a couch on your front porch in the city of Boulder because it is considered a fire hazard. The lawmakers decided that old sofas outside were just kindling, waiting for a spark, and banned them to keep neighborhoods safe. It also stops college students from turning their lawns into permanent party zones with ratty furniture. You have to keep your upholstery inside the house where it belongs. It is a buzzkill for porch sitters, but a win for fire safety. 80. Delaware takes the sanctity of marriage very seriously, even if you make a stupid mistake. It is illegal to annul a marriage on the grounds that it was entered into as a dare. This means if your friends pressure you into a wedding, you are legally stuck with your spouse. The court will not accept "I was just kidding" as a valid reason to dissolve the legal union. It forces people to take the ceremony seriously and accept the consequences of their wild bets. You better be sure you want to say "I do" because a dare is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. 81. Alabama has a law that makes you question the intelligence of horse thieves back in the day. It is famously illegal to walk down the street with an ice cream cone in your back pocket. The story goes that thieves used to lure horses away by putting a sugary treat in their pants so the horse would follow them without a rope. It is a brilliant but totally ridiculous way to steal livestock that the state actually had to ban. Now you just look like a fool with sticky denim if you try this trick. You better eat your dessert with your hands like a normal person or face the law. 82. If you are visiting the great state of Arkansas, you better watch your mouth and your phonetics very closely. It is strictly illegal to mispronounce the name of the state, which sounds like a nightmare for anyone with a lisp. The legislature was so tired of people saying Arkansas that they passed a law solidifying the correct pronunciation forever. It is a matter of state pride that turned into a legal mandate for every speaker in the region. You have to say the silent S correctly, or you might offend the entire government. It is the ultimate grammar Nazi move, written directly into the history books. 83. California is the land of extreme sports, but they drew a very hard line at underwater cycling. It is explicitly illegal to ride a bicycle inside a swimming pool, which seems like a terrible idea anyway. You have to wonder if kids were launching their Schwinns off the diving board and destroying the pool liners. The friction of the water makes pedaling impossible, so the law bans an activity that physics already prohibits. It is a hilarious example of the government stopping you from ruining your bike and your pool at the same time. Keep the wheels on the pavement where they actually belong. 84. Connecticut history takes a very dark turn when it comes to parenting and disciplining unruly children. There was once a law in the books that allowed the death penalty for a son who was deemed too stubborn. This terrified every teenager in the colonial era who just wanted to stay out late or talk back to his dad. It implies that being a rebellious brat was considered a capital offense, comparable to murder or treason. Thankfully, parents can no longer legally execute their kids for refusing to do chores. It is a shocking reminder of how strict and brutal family life used to be. 85. Florida has always been a wild place, and this parking regulation proves it has always been crazy. If you tie an elephant to a parking meter, you are legally required to pay the fee just like a car. This implies that people were riding pachyderms to the grocery store and trying to park for free. The city council decided that if you take up the space, you have to pay the dime regardless of your vehicle. It is a hilarious mental image of an elephant standing curbside while a meter maid checks the time. You cannot cheat the parking authority even with a jungle animal. 86. The city of Chicago and Illinois learned some hard lessons about fire safety, but this law is just baffling. It is technically illegal to dine in a burning building, which seems like the most unnecessary rule ever written. If the roof is on fire, you should be running for your life, not ordering dessert or finishing your steak. The law suggests that some people were so committed to their meal that they refused to evacuate during an emergency. It forces you to prioritize survival over satisfying your hunger. Please put down the fork and exit the structure if you smell smoke nearby. 87. Men in Iowa with facial hair have to be very careful about where and who they decide to kiss. It is illegal for a man with a mustache to kiss a woman in public, which is a direct attack on groomers. The lawmakers clearly thought that hairy lips were offensive to public decency and banned the practice entirely. It creates a weird double standard where clean-shaven guys can smooch all they want, but mustache guys are criminals. You have to shave it off or keep your affection behind closed doors. It is a discriminatory rule against the most classic style of facial hair. 88. Louisiana is known for its loud music and festivals, but they want you to keep your personal noises to yourself. It is technically illegal to gargle in public, which is a very specific sound to ban from the streets. This law implies that people were walking around rinsing their throats and making gross noises that annoyed the neighbors. Maybe it was a hygiene issue or just a sound that drove a local politician absolutely crazy. You have to finish your mouthwash routine in the privacy of your own bathroom before leaving. Do not try to freshen your breath on the sidewalk or you will get fined. 89. Maryland takes its seafood industry so seriously that they actually extended legal rights to the shellfish population. It is explicitly illegal to mistreat oysters, which sounds like a joke, but is actually a real conservation effort. You cannot just abuse the oysters by harvesting them recklessly or damaging their beds in the bay. The state recognizes that these slimy little creatures are the backbone of the local economy and deserve respect. It is a funny way to phrase environmental protection, but it works to keep the water clean. Be nice to the oysters because they are protected citizens of the ocean. 90. No, the people of Massachusetts are culinary purists who will not tolerate any deviation from tradition. It is strictly forbidden to use tomatoes in the production of clam chowder, which effectively bans the Manhattan style. This is a food war written into legislation declaring that only creamy white chowder is legal in New England. If you try to serve that red watery soup, you are committing a crime against taste and state pride. The lawmakers decided to protect the integrity of their most famous dish from outside influence. You better keep your tomatoes in the salad and away from the clams. 91. In Michigan, you better keep your temper in check even if your favorite song gets interrupted by static. It is actually a crime to willfully destroy your own radio in public places. This law implies that people were smashing their boomboxes on the sidewalk in fits of rage, creating a public nuisance. The state decided that your right to property does not include the right to create a chaotic scene of flying plastic and wires. You have to recycle your electronics properly instead of taking a baseball bat to them in the town square. It is a weird rule that protects the safety of the radios. 92. Nevada might be a desert state, but they drew a strict line when it came to alternative transportation. It is explicitly illegal to drive a camel on the highway, forcing you to stick to horses or cars. This suggests a time when prospectors or eccentrics were actually clogging up the interstate with slow-moving dromedaries. The image of a camel trying to merge into fast-moving traffic is both hilarious and terrifying for highway patrol. You will have to leave your humped friend in the dunes and take a regular vehicle if you want to use the pavement. Please keep the camels off the road. 93. New Hampshire has a very suspicious attitude towards beachcombers who prefer to work under the cover of darkness. It is technically illegal to pick up seaweed from the beach at night. This law likely stems from old agricultural practices where seaweed was valuable fertilizer, leading to midnight thefts. The government wanted to stop people from stealing the slimy harvest while honest farmers were sleeping. It turns a harmless beach activity into a clandestine criminal operation. You better wait for the sun to come up before you start collecting your marine plants because the night belongs to the crabs and not the seaweed thieves. 94. New Jersey police officers apparently have very sensitive feelings that are protected by the full force of the law. It is technically illegal to frown at a police officer, which forces you to fake a smile during a traffic stop. This law suggests that an unhappy face was considered a form of disorderly conduct or disrespect towards authority. Imagine getting a ticket for speeding and then getting another ticket just because you looked grumpy about it. You literally have to grin and bear it if you want to avoid extra trouble with the law. Put on a happy face or prepare to pay the fine. 95. New York City is a rough place, but the lawmakers decided to ban a specific type of playground aggression. It is illegal to throw a ball at someone's head for fun, which basically outlaws dodgeball tactics in the streets. The for fun part is the kicker, implying that if you do it for a serious reason, it might be okay. It is a rule clearly designed to stop bullies from terrorizing pedestrians with fastballs. You have to keep your game of catch civilized and aim below the neck to stay legal. No one wants a concussion just because you were bored on the sidewalk. 96. Farmers in North Carolina have to stick to mules and tractors because exotic labor is strictly prohibited. It is illegal to use an elephant to plow a cotton field, which creates a wild mental image of southern agriculture. Maybe a traveling circus left an elephant behind, and a farmer decided to put it to work on the crops. The state decided that elephants were not suitable farm equipment and banned the practice immediately. You have to respect the labor laws even when it comes to giant African mammals. Stick to John Deere and leave the elephants alone because they are not meant for plowing. 97. North Dakota wants you to be comfortable when you go to bed whether you like it or not. It is actually illegal to lie down and fall asleep with your shoes on. This law was likely created to stop drunks from passing out in public or in rented rooms without taking their boots off first. It enforces a basic level of hygiene and comfort that the government felt was necessary to legislate. If you are tired, you have to take that extra 10 seconds to untie your laces or you are a criminal. Sleep properly or face the consequences of your laziness. 98. Fishermen in Oregon have to be very careful about what they put on their hooks. It is illegal to use canned corn as bait when fishing, which is a huge blow to budget anglers. Apparently, fish love corn so much that it is considered cheating or bad for their digestion to use it. The state game wardens will actually check your tackle box for illegal vegetables to protect the ecosystem. You have to use worms or flies like a professional and leave the green giant at home in the pantry. It is a funny rule that proves even fish need to watch their diet. 99. Pennsylvania anglers need to use their hands or a rod because the most primal method is banned. It is illegal to catch a fish with your mouth, which sounds like something a bear or a desperate survivalist would do. You have to wonder who was diving into the streams and biting trout hard enough to make this a law. It is a hilarious restriction that stops people from acting like Gollum in the local waterways. Please keep your teeth to yourself and use a hook if you want to catch dinner. It is simply more sanitary and less dangerous to fish like a normal human being. 100. South Dakota has a law that seems to defy the laws of physics and common sense simultaneously. It is illegal to cause static electricity, which puts anyone wearing wool socks on a carpet at risk. This was likely intended to prevent interference with early radio or telegraph equipment, but it reads like a ban on friction itself. Imagine getting arrested just because you shocked your friend after sliding across the floor. It is the ultimate science denial law that makes a natural phenomenon a punishable offense. You better use plenty of dryer sheets to stay safe and avoid becoming a criminal due to basic electricity. 101. Vermont is usually known for its maple syrup and skiing, but there is an old statute that legally mandates faith. It is explicitly illegal to deny the existence of God, which technically violates the freedom of speech we hold dear. This law suggests that atheists were once considered criminals who were a danger to the fabric of society. Imagine getting arrested simply because you expressed some doubt during a philosophical debate at the local tavern. The government effectively tried to police the internal thoughts of its citizens through legislation. You had to publicly believe in a higher power if you wanted to stay out of trouble in the Green Mountain State. 102. We think of Christmas as the most magical time of the year, but the Puritans of Massachusetts saw it differently. From 1659 to 1681, it was actually a criminal offense to celebrate Christmas in the colony. The strict religious leaders believed that the holiday was a satanical practice full of excess and disorder. Anyone caught feasting or taking the day off work was slapped with a hefty fine of 5 shillings. It is mind-blowing to realize that the Grinch was basically the governor of Massachusetts for over 2 decades. You had to treat December 25th like any other miserable winter day or pay the price. 103. The state of Washington respects your right to bear arms, but they draw a physical line at ridiculous lengths. It is illegal to carry a concealed weapon that is over 6 feet long, which raises so many logistical questions. You have to wonder how anyone was managing to hide a 6-foot spear or polearm under their coat in the first place. The bulge alone would be a dead giveaway to any police officer walking down the street. This law exists because someone clearly tried to walk into a saloon with a giant pike down their trousers. You can carry your weapon, but please make sure it fits in your pocket first. 104. West Virginia has very specific housing requirements for your farm animals, especially if you own a stubborn donkey. It is technically prohibited to keep a donkey inside a shed because they must be allowed to roam in an open field. This rule likely stems from a concern that donkeys were becoming depressed or claustrophobic in small enclosed spaces. Imagine a farmer trying to be nice by giving his donkey a roof, only to get fined by the state. The government decided that these animals need fresh air and wide open spaces to be happy. You have to kick your donkey out of the barn and let him graze under the stars. 105. The dairy pride in Wisconsin runs so deep that it actually dictates how you are allowed to enjoy dessert. State law dictates that restaurants cannot serve apple pie unless it is accompanied by a piece of cheese. This culinary mandate ensures that every bite of sweet fruit is paired with their famous cheddar, whether you want it or not. It is a delicious form of tyranny that forces you to support the local dairy farmers with every forkful. If you ask for your pie plain, you might be breaking the spirit of the law. You simply must respect the cheese if you are dining in the Badger State. 106. Nebraska is located right in the middle of the country and is completely landlocked by thousands of miles of dirt. However, that did not stop the legislature from making it strictly illegal to go whale fishing within the state borders. You have to appreciate the optimism of a law that protects a marine mammal that has never been within 1,000 miles of the state. It is the ultimate pointless rule that protects the non-existent whales of the Great Plains from imaginary hunters. You can safely leave your harpoons at home because you will never find a target. The cornfields are safe from Moby Dick thanks to this incredible foresight. 107. Kentucky wants to make sure that fishermen stick to the traditional methods and do not get too medieval on the water. It is explicitly illegal to fish with a bow and arrow, which ruins the fun for any aspiring archers. The state decided that shooting sharp projectiles into a river was a safety hazard for swimmers and other boaters nearby. It paints a chaotic picture of guys standing on the shore launching deadly arrows at unsuspecting catfish. You have to play fair and use a hook and line like a civilized person. Leave your Robin Hood fantasies in the forest and bring a fishing pole instead. 108. The state of Maine has zero tolerance for lazy homeowners who refuse to let go of the holiday spirit. It is legally required that all Christmas decorations must be taken down by January 14th or you face a penalty. The government essentially acts as the Neighborhood Homeowners Association to ensure the tinsel does not stay up until Easter. It is a harsh rule for those of us who like to procrastinate on taking down the lights in the freezing cold. You have exactly 3 weeks after the holiday to clean up your act. The party is officially over and the state wants its normal landscape back immediately. 109. If you are planning a road trip through Missouri, you need to secure your animal passengers very carefully. It is officially illegal to drive a vehicle with an uncaged bear inside, which seems like basic survival advice. This law implies that there were drivers cruising down the highway with a grizzly sitting freely in the passenger seat. The distraction of having a massive predator trying to change the radio station was evidently too much for the roads. You absolutely must put your bear in a crate if you want to travel without getting arrested. Please do not let the bear drive no matter how much he asks. 110. The fashion standards in New York used to be so high that the police could actually arrest you for a bad outfit. There is an old law stating that a man cannot wear a jacket and pants that do not match each other. This means that wearing a mismatched blazer with different colored trousers was technically a crime against the state. The lawmakers were trying to enforce a dapper look and prevent men from looking sloppy in public. You had to buy the full suit or risk a fine for your terrible fashion sense. It is a hilarious reminder that looking good was once a legal requirement. 111. Rhode Island ends our list with a law that is both terrifying and wildly specific about physical assault. It is explicitly illegal to bite off another person's leg, which makes you wonder about the ferocity of local bar fights. This statute implies that regular biting was not the issue, but removing an entire limb with your teeth was happening enough to ban. The lawmakers looked at the chaos and decided they needed to draw a hard line at amputation by mouth. You can argue with your neighbor, but please do not try to eat their lower body parts. It is a gruesome rule that proves history was brutal. There you have it. absolute proof that our ancestors were legally out of their minds. If you survived this entire list without getting arrested for frowning at a police officer or eating fried chicken with a fork, do your civic duty. Smash that like button, share this with a friend, and subscribe to Dumb History right now. Now I have to know, which one of these ridiculous laws would definitely send you to jail first? The surprise pizza ban or the illegal mustache kiss? Let me know in the comments below. And don't stop now. Click the video on your screen because trust me, the history gets even dumber from here. Go watch it.